This is Beersborn. Welcome back to Game Design. In our last video, we started a new game project. And so far, what we have is a character that we can control and an object, we're calling it like a food that we can pick up. Now, what we're going to add in this video are some new game mechanics. And what I'm thinking is we can make it so that when our character picks up the food, their sprite gets bigger. And then maybe while our character is not picking up food, the sprites get smaller. So let's go over to the event sheet and let's talk about how we can add something like that. Now, this last event that we made, it says character on collision with food, then the food is destroyed. We can add another action to this event. You can have a condition over here on the left with multiple things that happen when that condition is met. So far our food is destroyed, but let's add a second action here. What I'm going to do is go to my character, and I'm going to look for a way that I can make the character's size get bigger. Now, if I look through all these actions, down towards the bottom, there's a section for size and position. And you'll notice we have a bunch of options here. Let's go to set size. Under set size, we can set the width and the height to whatever we want. Now, we could hypothetically just set that to a number. Like say I set it to 800 by 800. That's going to make it so that when I pick up a food item, our sprite gets a lot bigger. It's really big. But that'll only happen once, right? If I put in a couple different foods, I'm going to drag and drop a couple foods in here and hit play. If I pick up one, it gets big. But now when I pick up the other ones, I'm already 800 by 800. It's not going to get any bigger. So what I'm going to use instead, I'm going to double click on here and I'm going to use something called an expression. So let's delete the 800 by 800. What I want to do is take my character's current width and add a certain amount of pixels to it. And the way that we can do that is by typing out your character's name. You'll see the name of your character over here in the project window. I just called it character. You might have called it the same. So I'm going to type in the name of my main character. It's character. And then I'm going to hit a period. And these are the expressions. We have all these different options for different attributes about our main character. And you'll notice one of them is width. If you scroll down to the W's, or you can just start typing in the word width. And there it is. So this is the current width of my character, character.width. And I can add a plus sign and give it a number. Like say I'll maybe add 20 pixels every time I pick up a food. I can do the same thing for the height. Character, period, and in this case, height. And again, I'll add 20 to it. So every time you pick up a food, it takes your current width and height and adds 20 to it. Let's try that out. I pick up one, I get a little bit bigger. Pick up another one, I get a little bit bigger. Now it's not very noticeable. I'm going to make that more than 20 just to make it more obvious. Let's do 60. And try that again. Now every time I pick one up, I grow by 60 pixels. That's great. But there's only 3 foods. We should make it so that more foods pop up randomly around the screen. So let's add an event for that. This is similar to what we did in our first game project, so this might be kind of familiar. But I'm going to add an event. And I want to say that the condition is going to be every certain amount of time, a new food's going to pop up on the screen. Whenever you want to do something that's like time related, you can find under the system a whole section for time. It's down at the bottom. And one of the options for time is every X seconds. So I can say, okay, maybe every 1 second. And for the action, if I want to make a new object pop up on the screen under system, there's a create object option. So I'm going to create an object. I'm going to create a food. For the layer, we don't have to worry about that yet, but we do have to think about the X and the Y. If you remember, the X location is the left to right location. It's 0 over on the left and 1920 on the far right. The Y is the up and down location on the screen. It's 0 at the top and 1080 at the bottom. So if I want to make it pop up randomly somewhere on the screen, I'm going to type in the word random, and I have to do in parentheses 2 numbers. The lowest number I can pick from, comma, and the highest number I can pick from. For the X, since it's 0 on the left and 1920 on the right, I'll do 0, comma, 1920. That's the size of the whole screen. I'll do the same thing for the Y, random, 0, comma, in this case, 1080. That's the entire height of the screen. Click done. So now every 1 second, a new food will pop up. There they are. So I can keep growing bigger infinitely. The longer I play, the bigger my sprite will get. All right, cool. And I'm gonna add one last thing to this, I think. I wanna make it so that if I'm not eating food, my sprite will shrink. So let's add an event for that. We wanna think about what's the condition gonna be. The condition can be every certain amount of seconds, maybe every fraction of a second, we'll make our character's size get a little bit smaller. So let's add a new event. I'm gonna go under system and I'm gonna do every X seconds again. But for this one, instead of 1 second, I'm gonna make it a really small amount of time, like maybe 0.1 even. So every 0.1 seconds, I'm gonna add an action and I wanna make my character get smaller. So I'm gonna go to character, go down, find the size options. Here's set size. And I'm gonna set my width to my current character's width. So character dot width, but this time minus a certain amount. So every 0.1 seconds, maybe I'll subtract 5 pixels from my width. And I'm just kind of making up these numbers and I'll see how it feels when I play it. Character dot height, and again, minus 5. So every fraction of a second, it'll keep shrinking by 5 pixels. Let's try that out. It's pretty fast. Oh no, I didn't make it. Now you notice something weird here. If I don't pick up food fast enough and I let my sprite shrink down all the way, it starts reversing and getting bigger opposite, right? It flipped the sprite over and now it's growing. The reason for that is because in most game engines, you can have negative values. So your width can actually get into the negative numbers. And if you have a width of like -10, that just actually makes your character bigger in the opposite direction. So what we need to do is we need to make one last event that checks to see if our character is at 0 height and 0 width, then just destroy the character. That'll be game over and our character's gone. So I'm gonna add one more event here. The condition is going to be when our character's width or height is 0. So under character, I want to go down to the size section and you'll see an option for compare height or compare width. Now we can do either one because we're shrinking both at the same time. You can either compare the height or the width. It doesn't really matter. Do height. And our options are equal, not equal to, less than, less or equal, greater than, or greater or equal. And our height's going to be 0. Now we could do when it's equal to 0, we'll destroy our character. But what I would recommend doing is doing less or equal than 0. And the reason why is because there's a potential in games for you to get less than 0 of something. In this context, it might not happen, but say you're having a system with like life points where your character has so many life and maybe they only have 2 life left, but then they take 10 damage. Their life will actually skip past 0 and go into the negative numbers. So if you do less or equal, that'll make sure that your character is destroyed even if they end up with a negative life, or in this case, negative height. So I'd recommend doing less or equal. Otherwise, sometimes you might end up with a weird glitch where your character can't die. So I'll do that. Add action. When the character height is less than 0, I'm going to take my character and destroy them. Now let's try that out. Character's getting smaller. I can get bigger if I eat food fast enough. But if I don't eat food fast enough, my character disappears. And the game just keeps going forever. Now, if you want to, you can add some key in there to restart the game. We'll make more of like a screen that says like game over, press space to restart or whatever. We can add that later. But for now, let's at least add the event. So I'm going to add another event here. And I'm going to think about what's the condition going to be? The condition is going to be when the player presses a certain key on the keyboard, they can restart the game, right? So I'm going to go to keyboard here, and I can go to maybe on key pressed, right? So if they press a certain key, the game restarts. And we can choose which button that is. You can choose whatever you want. I'm going to do R for restart. Click OK, and click done. So when the keyboard R is pressed, I'm going to add an action. And whenever there's stuff that affects the whole game, like in this case, restarting the game, you can find those options under the system. So if I go to system, scroll down a little bit, you'll find under the layout section, a restart layout. So I can restart it. Let's hit play. Let's see what happens if I get too small. My character's gone. I can hit R and I can restart to try it again. All right, cool. Now we'll add more onto this later, but I think this is a pretty good start. So let's save it. You want to save it. You've already created this file, so you should already have a save for it. You can just hit save, and that should do it. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.